I'm just like you, but I've made one decision that put me in God's eyes as a righteous man, even though I'm a wicked man. Hi guys, welcome back. Robert Payne with Wicked Man here. Thanks for watching again. Please, once again, thanks for the comments, thanks for the likes, thanks for the shares, and please, once again, continue doing so. If you see any value in this message at all, please share it with those you think need to hear it and can be changed from it. You guys have been very supportive, and I do appreciate that. I hope that this is continuing the way you imagining or getting you answers to things that you have been scratching your head over and wanting to have answered. And if not, please send me any questions. I would love to see what I can do to help you out with those things. As always, if you're watching this video and you have not seen the others, you can go to YouTube, go to Wicked Man Ministries. That's with an IES in the end, not a YS. Ministries, yes, I know. But a lot of people are like, hey, wait a minute, I can't find it. Well, that's not true. Not a lot of people, but it has happened. Anyway, IES, Wicked Man Ministries on YouTube. Go check that out. And there's tons of different things there that may help you out with different questions, or may make you think things you never thought about before, make you hopefully more secure and sure of what you believe. And that's the whole point of what we've been doing here lately. So last time we talked about how God was a personal God. The creator had to be someone who made the decision. It can't have just happened. The universe can't have just done this by itself. You cannot create yourself. I can't create myself. I had to be made by something else. And it had to be a decision to make me. And the universe is the same way. It can't have made itself. It can't have just come from nothingness. And it had to be a decision. It had to be thought out, planned out, organized, and directed. We're going to talk about intelligent design in weeks to come, showing that there's evidence that somebody thought this out. It didn't just happen. But today we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of Christians are fighting with, and that's whether or not to believe this or that, or whether to mesh those. And I think meshing is a very slippery slope. You run the danger of going too far. Where do you draw the line of what you believe and what you don't believe? Because here's the thing, we've all heard, and I'm just going to use the word evolution. We've all heard evolution. We've heard talking about things like that. I know people are going to go, evolution, okay. If you're not a believer, you're probably thinking, oh, he's going to be one of those guys. But just bear with me and watch here, and I think you'll see something you've not seen before. But we've heard that as the answer to it all, and the we've heard it from people that are educated, and we have, as Christians, quite frequently have made a mistake of saying, well, we didn't know these things, and so we don't engage it, we don't study it. In fact, I grew up in a time where people said, you don't even need to listen to that stuff, that's just a waste of time. I actually heard people say that dinosaurs didn't exist. They had just found elephant bones and put them together and made dinosaurs, just to say that it was from millions of years ago, and to suggest the world is that old. And that is what makes us sound like we're wacko, ignorant Bible thumpers and ain't gonna believe in science and in real truth and knowledge. And that's just totally not true. I've taught science for years, and firmly love and believe in science. What I don't believe in is the interpretations that some scientists give us. So when somebody says to you, science says this, that's a mistake. Frank Turek, another well-known apologist, way above me, I'm looking up going, oh, you're so brilliant. But he says that scientists don't say anything. Science doesn't say anything. Scientists do. Let me say it right again. Science doesn't say anything. Scientists do. So when somebody says, science tells us this, science doesn't tell us anything. Science is just the study of the data. The interpretation is what we're hearing from people. And like it or not, everybody comes to everything with presupposition. So if you go into a study of scientific data with the already presupposition, the already belief that there is no God, it must be a natural explanation for this, then you're ruling out all of the possibilities. And they're not the only ones to do it. I do it as well. I go into every situation knowing there's a God and saying, look, yeah, I got to see this. Now, I will say that in my life I have been more open-minded and have looked at both things and wanted to see. And I think for a while I spent the time saying, well, you know, if evolution is true, if the evolution is the way it happened, then God did it, and that's okay, you know. But there's some huge problems with that, and I'm going to cover one of them today. And it's going to be a big word thing, but bear with me. It's irreducible complexity. Now, I have seen videos of atheists go, oh, there you go. That's y'all's thing. You jump on every time. But it is a fair statement that we do jump on all the time, but we do jump on it because there's major holes in this. Charles Darwin himself, in Origin of Species, said that if irreducible complexity can be proven, his whole theory goes out the window. And I mean, that's some paraphrasing, but you can look it up and Google it. He did say that. And so, what is irreducible complexity? Irreducible complexity is this right here. If an item or an organ or something needs all of its pieces in functioning working order on its very first day of functioning, if you take away one of those pieces and it falls apart, it doesn't work, then it can never have evolved, because evolutionists suggest that some pieces came together and the other pieces weren't there yet, but it was good enough to pass on to the descendants, and then the descendants may have picked up another piece or two, and then that was good enough to pass on to the descendants, and then finally it got to where all the pieces are there, and then it was a functioning thing that was supposed to be all along. The problem is, if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, why would it pass it on? Now, some people can say, well, it could just be a neutral thing. And that's suggesting that all of life is a neutral thing, because every single thing in their mindset had to evolve, had to have come slowly together. So every single piece had to have been neutral until all the pieces came together. And that's just not a fair way to look at it, not a scientific way to look at it. I believe this, and I'm going to stick with it and go with that, because there's no evidence to suggest that at all. It's just an interpretation of the data that totally ignores that it's possible that on day one it had to be functioning, which means day one somebody had to make it, because it can't evolve to fully functioning on one day. It can't. It takes millions of years in their mindset. So the example we always use is the human eye. If one part of the human eye isn't there working, then it can't have worked. Michael Behe is a scientist who refuted irreducible complexity, and the example he uses is a mousetrap. A mousetrap needs, and if you watch any apologists talk about irreducible complexity, they're going to talk about this. But I'm going to as well to help you understand what I'm going to say about the human eye. Mousetrap needs its base, needs a thing that snaps over to kill the mouse, needs a thing to hold that so it doesn't go too early, needs a thing over here that triggers that, and also needs a thing that the little cheesy sits on so the mouse can come on. One of those things not there. If you don't have a platform, then it's just a bunch of pieces of metal. If you have a platform and a snappy thingy, but nothing to hold the snappy thingy, I'm using these technical terms here for you. Snappy thingy, okay? It doesn't have the thing to hold, then it's just going to sit here. If it's there and has something to hold it, then it needs a trigger. If it doesn't have a trigger, it's just going to sit there for eternity. If the springy thing's not there, but the thing to hold is there, but there's nothing to hold it, it's pointless. In other words, all pieces have to be there for a mousetrap to actually function as a mousetrap. So to suggest that it slowly came together and functioned enough to pass on, that's kind of silly. Now, there have been plenty of people to try to dispute that, and they've said things like, well, what if you just took away the platform and you screwed all the stuff down to the floor? It would still work, but you didn't have a platform. Well, the thing is, the floor became the platform, so you still have something serving the purpose of the platform. I saw a debate with actual Michael Behe. and a guy was saying that he actually had on the desk, he had a mousetrap, and he showed how he took out one piece and he made it still work. But what he did was he made another piece serve two functions. He twisted to make sure, so the function was still being served by a piece, meaning there's something, those functions had to be served. So if you take away one piece, sure, but that one function. So if you take away one function, then the whole thing doesn't work. So it still didn't. So Michael B. He was like, he pointed out to me. He says, "Yeah," he said, you didn't dispute my mousetrap at all. You basically just had something else." In fact, I think in that debate he actually did mention the whole thing about screwing it to the floor too. But so see, it's still there. And so if you're desperately trying to say no, I can prove the mousetrap thing, you're barking up a silly tree when you could just say maybe. All of this happened because there's a being that can speak it into existence. And back to the human eye. The human eye can't function without all of its pieces there. Now, I've studied this a good bit, and I've seen several videos of how people explained how the process of it slowly got better over time, like snail eyes are just a speck, and they can perceive light and dark, and how that eye slowly could, and then they'll say, well, then all you just add a lens. Well, who added that lens? They'll say that. It's like, well, then I'll just add a lens before you know what you can focus on. Well, who added the lens? What about it made it say, you know what? I wish I could see clearer. So, there we go. I've developed a lens so I can see clearer. That just seems a little odd. But Richard Dawkins, he's probably the most well-known biological atheist, evolutionist that's an atheist, right? I saw a whole lecture that he gave on the human eye. And he starts with, some basic eyes and starts talking about how slowly this can happen. So he described a really cool process. Not something I believed, but it sounded plausible. And so I was riding in the car, this was a couple of months ago, thinking about that. I just watched that video again, and I was just thinking, I said, well, let me just think through, because it's something, I don't know, I know God, and I have, barked up the tree of the human eye for a long time. And it came to me that the issue is not the process. The issue is day one. If God created it, he was active on day one. The process means nothing. Because I would not suggest that a human eye has it over time slowly gotten better. Slowly, we've gotten, the muscles have gotten stronger. We've used them for harder things to see or focus on things closer, and so our muscles have gotten stronger. Maybe we pass on that trait. I'm not suggesting that it hasn't gotten better, but to be a functioning eye, to see visually, this is the problem. Day one, you've got organisms all over the planet evolving, right? And none of them have sight. What about this organism would make it go, I need sight. I need to be able to see. Let me see if I can make that clear to you. Imagine all humans, for all existence, have never been visual people. They've always been blind. Let's just say forever, every human, you and every human is blind. And we've always have been. We've never had sight. We have no idea what it means. We have a nose, we have mouths, we have ears, but no eyes. And then one day somebody comes to you and says, you know what, I wish I could see. You would say, what do you mean? Because you've never perceived seeing. So I just want to see light. And you'd say, what do you mean? I don't understand light. Well, I just have vision. I want to see color. What do you mean by color? You can't smell color. You can't taste or hear color. You can't taste or hear light or smell light. You wouldn't even know. So if this just happened through slow, natural processes and things that were added as they were needed, just naturally and accidentally. Now, I want you to understand this too. Quite frequently, they'll say, this happened by chance. It just happened by chance. And we'll say accident. So, no, not accident. Chance. Chance is the same thing as an accident. You roll the dice, and there's a chance you'll get that 7. But really, it's just an accident that those dice ended up on the number you needed. It's not, you didn't control it. It's still an accident, just being called a chance. The problem is a lot of people will say, well, if it happened by chance, then there's a chance that it happened. And see, now you're using the word chance in two different ways, and you're using logical fallacy, actually. But so if the I wasn't present on day one, there's no reason for this organ or organism. Sorry, there's no reason for this organism to develop sight, because nature just supplied all these chemicals and they all just started coming together. Why would nature give them sight and give them perception of light? Because nature is just nature. It's this is like I talked about last time. If you didn't see Personal Creator, Personal God, go back and watch it. But what I talked about last time, it's like that side wants to give thought and plan and purpose-driven decision powers to nature and to the universe. They want to give all these powers, all these God descriptors to the universe and to nature and to selection and all those things, but just not call it God. They want all the pieces of God except for this is what you're supposed to do. These are the rules. This is what you're going to have to happen. This is what's going to have happen to you. These are consequences of disobeying law. They don't want that piece. Everything else is there, but they can't call it God because then that throws in the moral issue, and they don't want that. So it's just God called universe or God called nature. Because they're given these deciding powers to say nature decided that this organism needed an eye, needed to perceive light. Which I could understand almost the ear developing through natural. I don't believe it. I could understand an argument for it because we feel vibrations. Feel the vibration. We feel vibrations, and so another organ developing to perceive vibrations a different way, because that's what sound waves are. They're vibrations. It's vibrations of the air molecules between you and me, and they're bumping, vibrating to your ears, and you're hearing the sound. I don't believe that, but I can see that. But I can't see an organ developing to perceive light, because there's no other way to perceive light except for possibly warmth. But to suggest in an organism what it's warm here, it's no warmth. It's not warmth anymore. When the sun goes behind the cloud or the cloud goes in front of the sun is what happens. And it goes, I need to perceive the warmth. It must be that it's light. It must be that it's light. That's just not fair to jump to that conclusion and then call us the ones that are living solely by magic and faith. That's crazy. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, it covers man's wisdom, 18 and 19, and 20, 21, several verses there together. It says that the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are dying, who don't believe, who are on the path to hell. And that's foolishness, the message of the cross. But that God's going to destroy the wisdom of the wise. He's going to destroy the intelligence of the intelligent. So basically, those who call themselves intelligent, those who call themselves wise, he's going to destroy that wisdom and show, And I think that's what irreducible complexity does. It shows that you're being foolish. You're believing in something that there's no reason to believe in. The evidence suggests that you're wrong, but you don't want to accept anything else, because the human eye is not the only thing. Every single thing had to be functioning on its day one for it to have a reason to pass on that function. If a reptile evolved to a bird, then this reptile had to have functioning wings on day one. Otherwise, they were not a credit to the lizard, even a neutral thing. I don't see how appendages growing off your back when you're trying to get away from predators and trying to get down your little hidey hole as a lizard. I don't see how those could be neutral. So to suggest that things slowly come about when there is no evidence in the fossil record of a transition like that, zero. Understand, that's zero. There's no evidence that this transformed into that. There's shift in population, sure, But that means the trait was already there. It's just the ones that had the trait were better able to survive the environment. That didn't mean they evolved to survive the environment. It just means the ones who didn't have that trait or didn't have it as strong as the others didn't make it. That's just shift in population. So we talk about natural selection and survival of the fittest, and then we throw the word evolution at the same time. That's not evolution. That is shift in population. That's not the same thing as evolving to that. And unfortunately, those two things get thrown in together. And so Christians say, well, yeah, survival of the fittest makes sense. So I must believe in evolution. Yeah, clearly the earth is billions of years old. It takes forever something like this to come about. I've got to believe in evolution. I just have to believe God did it. So I think there's a mistake, because then you're going to follow the science of a man does not die and come back to life. And that makes you start questioning the very essence of Christianity. The very essence of your salvation is that. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 20-21 goes on beyond what we just said, that God has made foolish the wisdom of the wise. What I want for you is to not be made foolish. What I want for you to say is to say, you know, I'm going to believe God. Let me look at the Bible and see how I know this is right, as opposed to let me look at the science and see how God must have been talking about that, must have been sort of referencing that, how it can be interpreted to mean this. Because then you're going to have a problem with it. Everything's going to be interpreted, including the resurrection. And that is where you fall into a danger zone, because science is going to tell you through the interpretation of scientists that a man can't die and come back to life. Well, that's true. A man can't. God can. And God can make it happen. And God can die and come back to life. And God can call Lazarus from the tomb. God can give life wherever he wants to. But in nature, on its own, accidentally, not chance, but accidentally, life never comes from non-life. Never. Just know that. So when you start trying to say, well, I believe these pieces, but I'm not sure about those pieces, doesn't mean you have to believe the whole thing just because of the fact that these moths in England changed from black to white. They didn't really change. It's just the black ones died off, the white ones died off. I can explain that story if you want. It's the peppered moths of England that are used quite frequently as evolution, and once again it's shift in population. You can believe in a shift in population, but if you hear someone smarter call it intelligence and call it evolution and call it correct, and you go, well, it does make sense. Bible can't be true. Bible's not a science book. Bible's a history book. But God said, let there be light. Thanks for listening to A Wicked Man. See you next time. Shield Apologetics.